Welcome to Life, Laughter, Divorce, episode 96. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
And I'm the boyfriend.
Welcome back to another wonderful week of...
That's my cue?
That's your cue.
Divorce.
Divorce. Oh, we even had movement here, folks. Little dance, the whole thing. Hey, I'm excited to be back this week.
Yeah?
Yes, I am. I am very excited. It's actually getting closer to the holidays. We're in December now.
That's right. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is all good stuff. A lovely time of year. And hey, while you guys are out there getting comfy, grabbing a beverage, snuggling up on your couch, whatever you're doing, or if you're in your car driving, while you're tuning in, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. Why? We want to hear from you. And hey, check out the website.
But not in your car.
Yeah, don't do
while
that
you're
in
driving.
your car. That's not good. Unless you're a passenger. And hey, check out the website at lifelaughterdivorce.com. We have a whole online store to make your holiday shopping so much easier. You know, just
go on, say, I want this one, click, go into the cart and be done.
Be done. And then we take care of our little elves. We package it up and we send it to you.
We have elves?
Yes. Called Leanne and the boyfriend. And we will ship your treats to you or your loved ones. And hey, the new year is right around the corner, and the new year is a time where we often start those New Year's resolutions. So that might be a really good time to...
So how many people actually stick with their New Year's resolutions?
Not many.
Yeah, you know why?
Because they don't have a life coach.
They don't have a life coach.
That's right. You need to get a life coach. Come on, people. You know, it's like, going to the gym at the beginning of the year and then you don't go. Why? Because you don't have a trainer. So get a life coach.
You go 2 or 3 times and then you're like, man, I'm good. And then you're done. But no, get a life coach and it will help you get through those New Year's resolutions.
Let's make 2019 amazing. I don't know about you, but I'm so done with 2018. Like, I'm over it.
I think I'm done with the whole 2000 teens.
Yeah, let's get into, let's just fast forward. We're ready, man. Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, so I think those are all my announcements for today.
Yeah, so then who do we have this week?
Well, this week was really fun. We have Barry.
Yes.
Yes. So we kind of want to tell you guys about this conversation because this was different than a lot of our
Well, the
episodes.
boyfriend was there.
The boyfriend was there, which was exciting because this was an in-person recording. And because Barry was here in Long Beach with us. So that was nice.
Very nice.
Yeah. And we talk about relationships and divorce, but we talk about it in such a different way this time because
what is Barry?
Barry's a comedian.
And what are you?
I'm a comedian.
So you
Not
guys
so much on this podcast.
No, but you guys were talking a lot of shop, which was interesting. But it was even more interesting from a normie's perspective. That's me, who is not a comedian, to hear how you guys would go about your craft, which is very similar to relationships to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny because as we were talking about it, it's like, yeah, this is just doing stand-up or being in the arts or whatever. It is very much like a relationship in so many ways. And you'll hear us reference back to a lot of it. So if you can follow along with us on this journey of talking about comedy and our own little history of it and how our personal life plays a role in that, because
and the other way around, your personal life plays a role in your comedy. Your comedy actually plays a role in your personal life too. And that was interesting to hear from Barry.
Yeah, it really does. And, now I'm thinking back and we didn't touch on this so much, but in this conversation, you'll pick up on how comedy is a coping mechanism for us in so many ways.
For those who didn't know.
Right? Just picking that low-hanging fruit for you. Here you go. So yeah, it's interesting because it plays such a big role in all aspects of our life. And we talked about, we kind of went off on all sorts of different tangents with it, but
it was a very fun conversation. And Barry's hilarious.
Yeah. So Barry is really cool. So if you guys have been following along, back on episode 84, we had Kathleen Parsons on, and Kathleen is hilarious. And she took us on this whole journey with her husband in Brazil and the cops, and then Rajanish.
Go back and listen.
You got to listen to it. So it's really great. And so Kathleen introduced us to Barry. And so Kathleen, Barry, and I have been in a writing group for some time now. And
what did you write? What do you write?
We write jokes.
Wow.
We write bits. So we've been doing that quite regularly. And that's how I got to know Barry. And so we invited Barry on the pod. I thought this might be interesting. Even more so because Barry's not married. And he's never been married.
No, but he's had a couple long relationships.
He has a long relationship now that he's in, and he's very happy. But he's never been married. And it's kind of fascinating to hear another comedian talk about, their journeys and relationships and how one affects the other or not. So, yeah, a little bit more about Barry. Barry's name is Barry Weisenberg. Barry Weisenberg is like the king of one-liners. And
he's hilarious.
He's hilarious. You guys have to check him out on YouTube. I'll put some links in the show notes and everything, but his set is hilarious. And and he performs all over Los Angeles County, Orange County,
Southern California.
Yeah. He's performed other places too. And he teaches stand-up at West Los Angeles College. He teaches a couple classes, including the advanced class there. So if you haven't seen Barry, definitely check him out if you're in the area. And if not, look him up on YouTube. I'll throw the links up there this week. And I hope you really enjoy this conversation as much as we did, because it was a blast. So thanks to Kathleen, giving you a big shout out for hooking us up with Barry. And I hope you enjoyed as much as we did. Without further ado. So Barry, welcome to Life, Laughter, Divorce podcast.
Thank you. Sorry I was late.
You were actually
right on time.
Okay.
So
it worked out. So thank you very much.
It was perfect.
Okay.
And I'm glad you made it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to have you here because Barry and I know each other because we're in a writing group on Monday nights.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
You write?
I'm just learning the alphabet.
Yes.
Yeah. Basic printing. No, but Barry is a wonderful writer, super talented. And you've been in the LA area for how long?
For the LA and Orange County, I've been doing this 27 years.
Wow. And it's weird because you're only 28.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. Yeah. I started even
so
as
good.
a fetus. You're a great writer, as I found out from seeing you write. You're just phenomenal. And I think it's great because we're all learning from each other.
Yeah.
And I have been doing this 27 years, and I absolutely love it.
What's this?
Stand-up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy. Right. I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like it. When you do it and you make people laugh, it's just a great, great thing to do. You feel great. They feel great. They've forgotten their problems for however long. And I just think it's therapeutic, not only for the audience, but for us to do it.
Yeah. It is very cathartic, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Have you ever stopped doing stand-up?
I have bombed so many times that every time I bombed, now I have the last, I would say 10 years have been great.
Yeah.
All right, better than ever. But early on, when I would have a bad night, I go, that's it. No more. I'm not doing this anymore. And then as soon as I got home, I started writing jokes. And that said to me, no, you're destined to do this. Instead of actually quitting, no, I kept writing jokes. And every time I bombed, I would go on stage the next time, write a whole new set and just see, how that would happen. Then I'd go with that until I bombed again.
Wow.
But the thing about stand-up is you got to keep getting back up.
Yeah.
Because eventually it does get good.
Yeah.
If you stick with it.
True. This is true.
And I live for this.
I know.
I wish I could make a living at it. I'm not at that point yet, but I still do it because I just love to do it.
Right. I totally understand.
Yeah.
And bombing is part of the process.
It is.
Like you can't be a comic and not bomb. That's how I see it. Like, that's how we learn.
Yeah.
Failure leads to success.
Yeah.
That works across all fields, basically.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And every time I bomb, I learn something. And when you get kicked in the ass, it teaches you, don't do that again.
Yeah.
And you really do learn. It takes a while sometimes to learn. Sometimes it's like the same in relationships.
I was just thinking the same thing.
I did the same thing again. You mean I hooked up with the same person again? Oh my God. But then, you start.
Yeah.
But I've been lucky in the last 2 years. I'm with someone who's just incredible, magnificent. She's like everything. But before that, I was the eternal bachelor. Someone suggested that, hey, you ought to call yourself Barry the Bachelor when you go on stage. I never thought about that, but that's really true.
Yeah.
But now it's
a nice alliteration.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I could still do that. But it feels so good to be with someone that you're comfortable with.
Yeah. So you've never been married?
Never been married, but I came close.
Really? Were you engaged?
Semi-engaged.
What is semi-engaged?
We were engaged to be engaged. She wanted an engagement ring. I was with her for about 10 years. She
Fast moving. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. You can see exactly.
Baby steps.
Right. And I should have married her because she was just terrific. And I'm only realizing that afterwards, but I didn't want to get tied down. I love being out there. I love having the chase and finding who I could meet and, have intimacy. I mean, those were things that really attracted me. But looking back now, I made a big mistake. But thank God I met someone else who just turns out to be also great. And I'm happy with her very much so.
Wow. So did you find it hard, because doing stand-up, that's a lot of, we're out late nights.
Yes.
We're in bars.
Yes.
A significant other's like, right, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And unless they're there every time, and then it's nice when they do go.
Yes.
But it's also different.
Yeah. I've run into that with so many of the women that I've been with. Oh, you're not going out again to do stand-up again, are you? And I would drag them to shows, sometimes voluntarily, sometimes they just tolerated it. I had one that after putting up with months of it, we were in a restaurant and she just let loose on me. And she says, I can't do this anymore. I went, geez, all right, you could have picked a better time and way to tell me.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, you want your significant others to see you because you're proud of that you could do this. But after a while, mostly we do the same set over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it's like,
nah.
Yeah, the boyfriend could probably do my set for me.
Exactly.
Be like, hey, I'm sick. Can you sit in for me?
Yeah, exactly. Same here.
Yeah.
So I've lost relationships because of that. But it hasn't stopped me from still doing it.
Right.
This is so great. I can't stop. I'm hoping that even after my death in the coffin, I'm going, so these two Jews go into a mortuary. I never want to stop.
Right.
It's funny because early on when I was in college, I don't know if this is true. Maybe it's me. I thought a lot about suicide. I have very low self-esteem and I constantly thought about it. I wanted to end my life. And then, but at the same time, I was always entertaining with my friends. And I said, what am I going to do about this? And I realized I can do stand-up, still be depressed, still be suicidal, and write about it.
Right.
And I said, this is great. I'll do this.
Isn't it funny? Suicide, hilarious. No, but sorry, I didn't mean to make you spit out your water.
But it's so true.
But the funny thing about it in a weird, dark way is that most of us comics we come from a very dark side.
Yes. Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, when just going to mics, I mean, you look around and it's, mics are in bars that are dark and dingy. I held my mic in what we used to lightly call a rapey basement of a bar in the East Village in New York for so many years, but it's those dark places. And then comics, we don't sit in the front row. Everybody's in the shadows of the room. Nobody wants to laugh. Everybody's got their little notebook out and, it's dead quiet. I mean, so we're working out material in front of a group that feels like they're not listening. Yeah. And not only that, you can't even see them because they won't come out of the shadows.
From my standpoint, I see all these weird people standing in the corners and you don't know who they are, but then sitting in the crowd and they come up, they become alive on stage.
Yeah.
You guys get this, I don't know what it is, but you are this new person and you're up there doing your act and you're loving every bit of it and you're trying to interact with the audience, even though you really don't want to interact with the audience.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting dynamic to see you guys from the corners to the stage and then back to the corner afterwards.
Yes.
And yeah, so it does come from, well, from my perspective, it may come from a dark place and you guys are just, you're doing what works for you.
My significant other came with me to a show in LA, and she was talking to the comedians before they hit the mic. And she said they were just so dull, so not interesting, awkward, right? They
don't want to talk. They don't want to talk to me. They're just like, what are you talking to me for? Kind of thing.
And they don't even know really how to carry on a conversation.
Yeah. Right.
But as soon as they hit the mic, their act took over and they were off and running. Yeah. And she remarked about that same thing that you just said. Mm-hmm. Just incredible.
Yeah. I remember when I first moved out here to California and I had made some new friends and I was doing a show in LA and at one of the clubs, and I had some friends come with me. They're like, yeah, we'll go. And it was their first time seeing me. And I went up and I did my set. I got off and they were like, who are you? You are a completely different person.
Yeah.
You know, and I was shocked because I'm like, oh, I'm the same person. Like, I didn't see it that way.
Right.
And I had spent so many years in New York around comics, and they saw me as a fellow comedian, and that was what it was. So hearing that from like normies,
yes,
was a whole different thing.
Yeah. But you guys put on you take on a new persona and you put on an act, which is what the job requires. Right. But for someone who knows you, it's hard to, it's like, who is that versus, because we're not used to seeing you as a person putting on an act.
Right.
Yeah.
You're just the person that we're hanging out with. So so it's a little bit different for a normie, as you put us, to see you guys go up on stage and put on this show, which is essentially what you're doing. Because whenever, like a band, they're not the same people when they're off. Right. Actors aren't the same people when they're off. Right. You guys are out there doing a performance, and we have to get used to it. It's just comedy isn't thought of in that sort of respect.
True. And a lot of
Aren't you funny all the time?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, no.
Right.
I'm sitting here thinking what an asshole you are right now. That's usually what I'm thinking.
But you know what? I used to be. Because when I grew up, I watched The Tonight Show with Johnny.
Right.
And remember how the comedian would do his stuff and then he'd sit down with Johnny and he was still funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that secret in advance. They give stuff to Johnny to say so that he can have all these comments and be funny. Well, I thought they just came up with stuff at the top of their head. So when I would be at school, I was on a roll all day long. And sometimes people would say, hey, you got to turn it off.
Yeah.
And they used to say that to Robin Williams too, because he was constantly on. And finally I did. As I started to get older, I learned, you know what? I do have to turn it off. You have to be a normal person.
Yeah.
But all of us, actors, comedians, I guess singers too, we are pretty dysfunctional. Let's face it, in one way or another. Mm-hmm. We all have this dark side. We all have this nerdy side. We all have this geeky side. We all have this dysfunctional side. So, you just got to live with it and recognize it. But some people take advantage of it.
It's so true. Well, and the other thing is, when people meet us and they hear, oh, we do comedy, they're like, oh, tell me a joke. Do this. And it's like, dance, monkey, dance.
Right.
It's like, no, that's not.
It doesn't. Yeah.
That's not how it works.
People would ask that from me a long time. And finally I got to the point where I say, look, you need to see me in a club and I'll do my stuff in the club and then it's in the right environment, and then you can see my stuff. But for me to do a joke, because I would tell them a joke and it would bomb. I go, dang, that joke didn't go well. How come it kills on stage? Yeah. So there's a difference.
Right. It doesn't translate. And then, like I remember I was traveling back and forth and doing shows here and there. And I met a person on a plane and, we get to talking. They're like, oh, what are you doing in Vegas? And I was like, well, I'm going to see my family, but I'm also doing shows and I do stand up and whatever. And then he's like, oh, you're a comedian. I would never have guessed that from talking to you, after we just had a conversation. And then it's like, tell me a joke. And it's like, I had learned that he was a coach, like a track coach for a university. And I was like, all right, I'll tell you a joke. If you like run up and down the aisle, pass a baton and then, make it under 1 minate, I'm good.
Which is a funny bit, by the way.
It's like, and he just looked at me like, what a jerk. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of am. But
well, at least he knew he was an a-hole.
Right? It's like, well, come on, man. But they're like, he's like, oh, I won't believe it until you actually tell me something you wrote.
For all the years that you were in New York, how do you compare the comics there with here?
You know, I think there's talented comics in both places.
Yeah.
The biggest difference I notice is geographics has a lot to do with it, because in New York, I feel like how it's laid out, we are so much closer as a unit. It's so much easier to know everybody.
Right.
For me, this is my experience. Here, because I'm 25 miles south of LA, I feel very disconnected.
Yeah.
But even when I was driving into LA and I would go and get ups and stuff, I didn't feel the same warmth or vibe that I did in New York.
Yeah.
Even after I did shows, the difference was the people producing the shows they didn't even say thank you. It's like, okay, like the level of professionalism was different.
Yes.
It was just different.
Yeah.
And
you always told me it was a camaraderie. You could go to New York and do 2 or 3 mics in a night.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas here in LA, it's an hour between each one of them, and then you're waiting, and then you can't do more than one, and it's much more difficult to do it that way.
And that's why comics in New York, I've seen them get on TV shows faster, because there's so many opportunities real close to each other.
Yeah.
You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, start the night with 5 minutes.
Yep.
Or like 10 minutes and end up at the night with just this perfect set, because you've had a chance to try it out on all these audiences.
Yeah.
No wonder they make it faster.
Yeah. And I think too, what I learned from being in New York, and I ran a mic for 7 years and I produced a show. And what I learned is it was, for me, that running a mic was the best thing I ever did, because it really immersed me right in there, and I met so many people.
Exactly. You get to network.
I met so many people. And the beautiful thing about running a mic was watching someone go up for the very first time, and 7 years later, like, my mind is blown at how awesome they are.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, wow, I got to be a part of that.
Exactly.
And I think as we get to know one another and stuff, but also in New York, like, doing that, other people weren't just like, oh, what can you do for me? It's like, what can I do for you also? Yes. Coming to LA, it's all about me.
Exactly.
And there was no reciprocation. Even when I was producing a show out here.
Yeah.
Those same people I put up on my show, I ran into someone, she did my show a couple of times. And I ran into her at another show, and she acted as though she had never seen me before.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, like that. You know,
it's just what you said.
It wouldn't happen in New York.
It's very selfish. I teach comedy, and I teach my students, hey guys, we're all in this together. Let's be friendly with each other. But it's just like backstabbing and killer, and you do something for me, but I'm not going to do anything for you. Like, they're so afraid that someone else is going to get ahead. And in fact, I just went through that with a comic who said, oh, I just did this room in LA. It's a showcase, and there were all these agents there. I said, oh, I'd love to do it. He says, I'll send you the contact information. That was 2 months ago. I'd never heard from him.
Right.
So I'm going through that too. But I think there's a better camaraderie in Orange County than there is in LA.
And I've heard that.
Yeah.
And the people I've met in Orange County have been really wonderful.
Yes.
You know?
Not so much me. It's like, hey, come on, do my gig.
Yeah.
You know, do my show. I don't care if you have any show. Come on, I need comics.
Right.
Very much friendlier.
Much friendlier. And it's just, it's very interesting at how different it was. And when I came here, I had no idea that it would be so different. So I was really like in for a rude awakening after that had happened. And I haven't been doing as much shows. I haven't been doing.
God, you're so good. You're so good. Your writing is so brilliant.
This is why I hang out with Barry.
So
also,
brilliant. You're just a phenomenal writer. I'm just blown away when we do our writing sessions. I come away going, God, the way she words a joke is just perfect. It's just incredible. Have any of the people that you saw in New York, have they made it? Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Every time we watch something on Netflix, I inevitably see, several people that I know.
They have their own.
They have their regulars in shows. They have their own thing. They're writing movies.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of.
You saw one on the commercial the other day. It's like, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah. And then he posts on Facebook like 2 minutes later, hey, that was me, in case you were watching the game. I was like, oh, it was you.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can't watch anything without seeing somebody I know, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Really, because it's like, wow, I was surrounded by super talented people.
Well, you can be there too. And I have a feeling you're going to get some help to get there. Your writing is just spectacular. I could go on and on for this whole segment.
My listeners are like, she's not even funny on this podcast.
You're very, very modest. But I'm telling you right now, so that the internet, that means the whole world will know, you are just a brilliant, brilliant writer. And our other partner is also just
she
great.
Is. Super talented.
Very much so. What got you into stand-up? What got you to say, I want to do this?
Interestingly enough, it was, I had been running my mic for 7 years, but I had been doing other things. I was doing commercials and theater. I was writing my one-woman show, which was more of a sketch show, one-woman sketch show. And I had started my mic for sketch comedy, and it evolved into storytelling and character monologues, and then slowly into stand-up. And I was hosting my mic every week, and I was doing little bits and stuff like that and trying different things out, but I was doing all these other things. And then some of my comics are like, how come you're not doing shows? And I was like, well, I don't know. And when I first started comedy, I was doing improv. And improv is, a team thing, a team effort, which is much different than stand-up.
Yes.
And when I tell people I did improv, people are like, oh, you do stand-up. I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. And I get so angry.
Yeah.
And then everybody would want to take me to a stand-up show. And it would just piss me off. And because I'm like, that's not what I do.
Yeah.
And then here I am running this mic, and years go on, and I end up doing, I had written some stand-up for my one-woman show. And so I ended up doing it. And it ended up going over well. I ended up doing it at somebody else's mic or show or something.
Wow.
And then next thing you know, I was booking all kinds of shows and doing shows. And then I started producing my own stand-up show. And at that time, I mean, my whole mic was all stand-up for years now. And then I ended up having magicians at my mic, which was very interesting.
Wow.
But it kind of it just kind of changed, and that became what I was doing. And then I was traveling, doing some shows. And
incredible.
Yeah.
Did you go to, I thought I heard you say you went to Las Vegas?
Yeah, I used to live there. So I have done shows in Vegas every time I go home. Yeah.
Wow, you've really got a great background.
Their one-woman show was done, 3 different cities across the East Coast?
Yeah.
New York, a couple fringe festivals.
And Delaware and D.C. And then back to New York. Yeah.
The heck are you? You need to be on TV. You need to be at major clubs headlining. Oh,
Thank you.
God, you're so good.
Sorry, boyfriend. Now the Barry and I are going to be a thing. We are.
I know you said you did, you ran that show in kind of a rapey
basement. Yeah.
Nothing bad ever happened there, did it?
No.
Okay, thank God.
No. That place actually closed down. One of my comics was walking by and messaged me. He's like, by the way, there's a lock on the door at Identity Bar, so you may want to find a new place for your mic.
God.
Like, I wasn't even notified. And so I went out that next day, and I ended up meeting somebody new at another bar restaurant, which was a really nice place in the in the East Village, Lower East Side. And we ended up moving there. So I never missed a beat. Like,
incredible.
I had been at another place, the M White Bar, for a long time, and they treated us very well. And that was after, gosh, I can't keep track. Started out at a Magnet Theater, which was an improv theater in New York. And then I moved it to Identity Bar. And then from there, I moved it to M White Bar, and from M White Bar to Casa Umo. And yeah.
Are those places still around?
Those places, no. I'm anywhere I go, I shut that place down. Except for Magnet Theater. They're still alive and strong. But bars kind of come and go. Yeah.
God. Yeah. Great stuff. So you that gave you a chance to sharpen your own act, right?
Yeah.
Because every week you don't want to keep doing the same material. You want to keep adding, etc.
Yeah, I kept adding and changing things, and it's evolved. But there are some pieces that they always work, and they're kind of timeless. So I always. And
you were also a great, when I saw you here in California, you were great as an MC, because your improv background would come in, and you'd be able to take off of other people's jokes and play off the crowd and really work everything to bring it all together.
Which
so
is
you were talented that way.
That's
also.
what an MC should do. You just exactly correct.
Yeah.
Did you see a lot of bad comics in New York?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Oh, because New York, you always think, oh, everybody there must just be superb because it's New York.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have the same view of LA, but there's a lot of bad comics.
There's a lot of bad comics, and at the same time, I think, again, going back to having a mic, I could learn from a bad comic.
Yes.
And so I appreciate them.
Yeah.
Because if I were just watching good people, that would give me such a warped idea of what things should be.
Yeah.
And I love watching people work stuff out.
I do too. Even if it doesn't go well, I still love it.
Yeah, because I see the wheels turning.
Yes.
And I have so much respect for people getting up there, and people that weren't good before are doing so well now.
Yes.
And it's just, they had to go through their own process. Everybody has their own process of like how to get there, Someone asked, God, there's a great book on stand-up comedy, and I'll think of it in a second, but someone asked Rodney Dangerfield, what's the secret? And he said, there is no secret. Just keep getting out there and performing. And it's just what you said. Everybody has their own timeline. It's different. There is no secret. You just got to get out there, perform, and just do it over. It's so true. And I feel like our listeners are like, wow, you guys are talking about all of this comedy stuff. But at the same time, when you hear what we're saying, it applies to everything else in our life. Relationships, right?
There's such a similarity, which is why so many comics talk about relationships, because it's the same type of process.
Absolutely.
God, things are changing. In a way, don't you think guys are a little bit scared now?
Oh, with the Me Too movement?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I have a day job, and I'm terrified. I'm very friendly with everyone there, but I've got to learn to keep my mouth shut, because as a comic, you tend to want to say, and I don't want to get in trouble. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm also talking about dating.
Yes.
Don't you think that that's?
Yes. In fact, I just had a conversation with somebody the other day on that same kind of thing, because it goes by like, okay, so someone jokes around a lot. Like you and I, we tend to joke around a lot with people. And so when we have these little zingers that come out and everything, and we think like around any other comics, it's like comedy gold.
Right,
we're doing bits, but around a normal person,
we're offended.
Or the people are okay with it. But I think what's happening is because as a society, we are becoming so uber aware of this, that things that we may have been okay with before
is not
okay, because we're really reevaluating how we look at things.
Right.
How does that change how you guys write comedy?
Well, that's a really good, that's a great point.
Because you can't make fun of these things that people are now aware of and may take, offense may be the wrong word, but it may hurt them some way. So therefore, how do you change the way you write comedy?
Well, that's
on stage. I think you can get away with a little more,
right?
But when you're just around people and talking or whatever, it's a little different.
I have something on that, and I've thought this for a long time. Is when I hear comics and they talk, let's say the topic is a relationship, right? Mm-hmm. I think, like in my perspective, I look at it from the other person's point of view.
Okay.
Like, so if I'm talking about an ex-husband, for instance, or an ex or somebody I dated in my comedy set, what is it from their point of view? Because there's a difference between doing comedy and bashing somebody.
Right.
Because to me, that's just bashing somebody at their expense.
Yeah.
But if you can do it in a smarter way, if you will, I think you can do it introspectively.
Right.
So that it's not at somebody, it's from the perspective of what's my role in it. Right. Because that makes it all the difference. And I've actually had some male comics approach me after my shows saying, I like your set because you're not doing what a lot of women do, which is just bash the other person.
Right.
And it's not trying to be self-deprecating necessarily to myself, but it's being more truthful.
Yeah. Yeah. My only concern is because everything, we seem so divided as a nation right now. Everybody hates everybody, basically. I just don't want things to become so serious that we can't talk about anything.
Right.
We're getting close.
And it's starting to really affect me. I'm going, God, I'm so afraid. What if someone gets offended? I have a joke in my act that said, I'm Jewish. I dated a woman who was half Asian, half Jewish. I don't want to say she was in the money, but her name was Ka-Ching. In LA, someone got offended by that. And I said, that just seems like such a lighthearted, non-bashing joke.
Right.
But everybody is like, oh, I'm offended by that. If I'm offended, everyone should be offended.
Right.
So it concerns me.
And rightly so, right? Because I think today is a very hard time to be a comedian.
Yes.
Because we already walk a fine line.
I know.
We really walk a fine line of stretching the boundary, making people think.
Yes.
Bringing out truth that you're already thinking it.
But that's why I think we need more comedians out there, because we got to. Humor helps us get through a lot of things.
I agree.
And we are stressed right now as a society, and we need more humor to bring us together. Yeah. So you guys force it in there. Keep pushing the comedy.
I agree.
And make us bring us together.
I agree. I think we need to keep going. I agree. We just need to keep going out there and not let ourselves get pushed off the stage.
Right.
George Carlin never believed in political correctness, and he would say what he wanted to say. And I think we got to draw a line in the sand and say, "Hey, stop."
Right. Well, here's the thing: people are confusing business people in politics with comedians. They're two separate things. Comedians, our purpose is to be thought-provoking, to really push the boundaries, to make this art, to make you think, to stretch our mind in a way that you
stimulate conversation.
We stimulate conversation.
Yeah.
A politician, a business person, I think there's a time they should do what they do best.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a difference.
There is very much so.
And now when it comes to the Me Too movement, when you're doing other stuff to other people physically and that kind of stuff, that's a whole different topic.
Yes.
But when it comes to the freedom of speech and what someone may have said in their past, if I'm a comedian, I'm not running a major organization.
Right.
My job as a comedian is to do exactly that.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the difference. And I think people are getting confused at that.
All the lines are blurred.
Yes, the line. Absolutely agree. So yeah, it's a concern. I'm worried that sooner or later we can't talk about anything. And I'm going, but what are you going to laugh at?
Yeah.
You've got to have humor.
Yeah, like I don't want the person that I work for, in a regular job in a regular organization, I don't want that person to be a comedian.
Right.
Right? Like there's a time and a place.
Yes.
Know your lane.
Yes.
Get in your lane. Type of thing. And comedians, it's freedom of speech. They can talk about what other topics they want. Each comedian has an audience for that. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then the same goes for other people.
Has your comedy ever affected your job? Because you say some things on stage that may or may not, but then if your people from work see it, do they look at you differently?
Yes. I've had a lot of people come out because I do tech support, and the image of someone doing tech support, he's boring, he's geeky, he's nerdy, he spends all his time just knowing computers and nothing else. Yeah. And then they come out and see me and they go, "Oh my God, you're so different. I would never have thought that you were a comedian." Right. But then at work, I do say funny things. I'm careful at what I say. But I do say a lot of funny things. And some people have actually said, "Oh, I'm not surprised you do stand up." So I get both. When I was dating, I would never take a girl out if I couldn't get her to laugh. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you ran into that. If you, like in any relationship, if you couldn't get the guy to laugh, was it important to you? It's very important to me.
I think it's very important to me. Yeah. Yeah. If someone didn't appreciate my humor, I have dated, I think in the past, somebody who had not a whole lot of sense of humor, but I had a lot of humor at his expense. So there was that trade-off, but that didn't last but a minute. So, but yeah, I think it is very important.
Yes.
And also what I've learned is it's very important to have someone like the boyfriend, which I never had before, in that he is super supportive in my comedy in ways that other people weren't.
Yes. And I've got the same now.
Yeah.
It's important to me. Even though, like I said, she doesn't have to come out to my shows, she's still aware. She says, "Look, I know you need to get on stage. I know you love this and you need to do it." She just doesn't want me doing it every single night.
Yeah.
But Because I do one-liners, I remember taking out one woman and we started talking. I told her I do stand-up. She says, oh, what kind of humor do you do? I said, I do one-liners. And she says, oh, I don't like one-liners. And in my mind, I went, well, I guess I won't be seeing you again. And I didn't. Because, just like you said, why,
Yeah.
Now, is it important let's say, I don't know if you dated any guys that were funny too.
Yes, I have.
Was it important that you be funnier than him? Or was it a kind of give and take?
It really would rub me the wrong way because they would act a little bit superior.
Yes.
And that was a little frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that, for me, I wouldn't want to end up with another comedian or even in improv.
Yeah.
That person had to have the upper hand or be the better person.
Right.
Or get the bigger laughs in the show.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of a thing. And that was, but yeah, at the same time, that would make for good for stage chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's weird. I mean, it's different.
It is. Now, the woman I'm dating with now, our first few dates, she said, I'm funny too. And I went, okay. And she did say some funny things. But after she saw me perform on stage one night, she said, I'm not as funny as you. And that was kind of an interesting thing for her to say. But at the same time, it was like, gee, that's so great that she was honest.
Yeah.
But
glad you came around.
Yeah, I know. But true. But I used to say to her, do you want to go on stage? I'll help write your stuff. Because off stage, she was very funny. She could ad lib and come up with stuff. She said, no, I don't think I can do it on stage. And my brother is that same way. And we all know people that are very funny off stage, but they just can't do it on stage.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is if you've dated people and they're like, oh, people tell me I'm funny and that I should be doing stand-up. And I'm just like, I just want to stab you in the eye right now because it's like, because people take for granted what we do. They don't see the hours of writing, the hours at mics, all the times we bombed.
Correct.
All the, it's a science.
It is.
And people just are like, oh, you're just doing that off the cuff all the time.
And they don't get it.
No, we make it look like we're that. Yeah. And that, so when people are like, well, my friends are telling me I should do that. It's like,
all right.
That's like me telling somebody, my doctor, like, I'm pretty good at figuring out what's wrong with me when I'm not feeling well. I should be a doctor.
Yeah,
They'd
exactly.
be like, go screw yourself.
Let me do surgery.
Right.
Absolutely agree. I get in my stand-up classes, I've had a lot of people from, what's the speakers, those speakers bureau, I can't remember the name, Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And they come in, they go, oh, well, I'm in Toastmasters, so comedy should be easy for me. And I go,
oh my God.
Okay, wait, big surprise coming. So there's a lot of misconceptions about us.
That's another funny thing is I've met some people and they're like, oh, they don't know I do comedy. They don't know my history, but in talking and, they have my own business and they're like, well, maybe you should go to Toastmasters. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Nothing wrong with Toastmasters people, but it's it's like,
I agree.
I don't think that's the last thing. Maybe it could be a great thing. Who knows? I could really work out.
When you
stuff.
watch TV, which comics do you like?
Oh, people ask all this all the time. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I know because we see so many.
Yeah, and you know what? I have to be in a certain mood to watch other comics on TV, and then if someone else is like. If the boyfriend's like, hey, let's watch this. And then I start seeing all of New York and people I know, I get really depressed.
Yes. I can absolutely relate.
Is that weird?
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It actually makes perfect sense. I grew up, like I said, watching The Tonight Show. And I probably saw every comic that Johnny had.
Yeah.
But we see so many comics that are funny that aren't
known.
Right. And so we'll mention those names and they go, nah, I never heard of them. Yeah. And I go, you got to go to a club.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just it. When I think of people that I really admire, it was a lot of people who I saw at mics. And I didn't go to their shows, but I would run into them at mics. And I'm like, oh my God, that person's hilarious.
Yes.
But to look at other people who've got like their Comedy Central and stuff, I'm like, yeah, they're great. And I respect them and what they've done. But it's really hard to pick a favorite.
I know. I do get a little bit jealous when I see someone at Comedy Central, I go, that's what I want.
That's what, the worst though is when someone's, I don't know if you've ever had this, but where, when you're just getting to know somebody and you're dating and they're like, I got us tickets to the comedy, whatever. And you're just like, oh my God, I want to kill you.
I know.
Like what an insult.
Yeah,
like, right?
Exactly.
Because it's like, I know you do comedy and you'd like this. I bought you tickets and you're like, that's where I want to be.
Yeah,
like,
it's exactly. I think, what an insult.
Right?
Oh my God, that's where I want to be. I don't want to go see someone.
And your friends are performing that night or something.
Yes, I know.
You're like,
and I'm not on stage.
Right, yeah.
Have you ever seen a comic? And I shouldn't be saying this because, I have my nights too. Have you ever seen a comic not do so well and you go,
only if they talk about how much they kill. And then,
in LA, that's all you hear. No matter who you talk to, I killed. And I go, yeah, someone saw you at the show the other night. You didn't exactly do, but everybody kills no matter who you talk to.
And then, I don't know. I don't like to say that about any of my sets because I don't feel like they're ever perfect. There's always something that could be better.
Yes, I know.
And I'm super self-critical of that.
Very
so
much
to
so.
get off stage and be like, yeah, I kill. Like, it's nice to be like, I feel good about that set or something like that. Like, I feel it went well.
Right.
But I'm always thinking like, where was my timing off or my cadence?
That's what
or
I
how
do.
was my pacing or how?
Yeah, but it's nice when other comics or other performers come to you and say that was a great set.
You know why?
That's the best.
I live for that.
That's the best.
I absolutely agree. Yes, I want the audience to love me. But when other comics come up to I go, that's why I do this.
Yep.
And we shouldn't be that way, really.
Right. It's hard to,
you're human.
I know.
And,
but
I
know. That's a really great point because I'm super conscientious of that is when people come off stage and it's like, when someone's giving you like, oh, that was great. And they didn't mean it. And then and I always want to make sure like when I tell people that I'm honest, but I always feel bad for people when I know that they didn't do well and they're not hearing the same kudos as other people because you can just see it on our faces. Like, oh yeah, I did really bad.
But I still go up to everyone who I'm performing with, whether they do bad or good. And I go, great set. Yeah. Loved it. I'll take one joke. Yeah. And I'll take one joke they did and say, that was great, that joke. Yeah. Make them feel better. Yeah. I don't want them,
There's always we can always find one thing that we genuinely liked about somebody's set.
And whenever I watch a comedian, whether it's live or through the internet, that gets the wheels going. Man, I start bound. And don't you do it? You start thinking of new jokes. Yeah. Oh, I do that all the time. Yeah. And by the time a performance is done, I've got like 10 new minutes.
Not that we're ripping it off from the comic.
Right,
I just want to be clear.
Yeah, let's be clear. No stealing here.
But what happens is it's kind of like listening to music is I feel like we pick up a rhythm.
Yes.
And it's like sitting at a mic or a show at night is we sit and we listen to the other sets and you can pick up a rhythm.
Yeah. So you can identify jokes and where this
right.
kid.
And and then when you start working that muscle in your brain, it's like, oh, this topic.
Yes.
And then you can start applying it. And it's like your brain starts falling into that beat.
Isn't it amazing how nobody really knows, but every night there's some open mic somewhere where you can get on stage. Yeah. And nobody knows that until they see someone make it and they go, oh, there he is. Yeah, but it took 20 years.
Go to badslava.com.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right? And if you're even thinking about doing comedy, you need to know that website.
Yeah. And also gigglechick.com for all the gigs back east.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes. Yeah. And there's tons of other openmics.org. There's tons. Yeah. But most people don't know that. And it's the same with musicians. Yeah. Somewhere every night is a place where a musician can perform. Yeah. And most people don't know all the work that goes into this. Right.
Hours.
Yeah. Hours.
Hours.
Oh, man.
And the self-loathing.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, all right. So all of this talk, it's the same kind of thing. The more we talk about like the self-loathing and the hours we spend spinning on these things and ideas is the same with dating. To Barry's face, I think he's just going to lose his cookies over here.
You have no clue how I have bombed with women. I never thought I was good looking. I never thought I had it. I didn't think I looked good. I was awkward. I felt geeky. I couldn't talk to women. I was so frustrated. So when a woman would reach out to me, I go, oh my God, I guess I will be in a relationship with her. As long as a woman reached out to me, that was it. It wasn't until years later when I said, I want to find someone like this. I was just so grateful going early on because I couldn't talk to anyone. And I was always so envious of gorgeous women. I go, they must just have tons of guys going after them all the time. And I was talking to this one woman. She said, I always get tons of guys, but not the right guy.
Right.
And I go, well, how do you?
I'm saying right like that's me. It's not.
Well,
it's not. It's not. So, no,
okay.
the boyfriend's like, I don't know.
So for me, relationships were just, dating was just, oh my God. And then was I trying to be too funny that night? And I'd come home and go, I didn't do this right. And everything that I thought I did wrong, I would just obsess over.
Yeah.
And it was just, dating for me was just not until the internet came along. And then I felt, oh my God, I don't always have to make the first move. Someone else can reach out to me and, we'll trade emails and see how it goes. That turned out to be a much better, a life-saving experience for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How was it different? What happened?
So, because I could hide behind the computer.
Mm.
I didn't have to, wasn't like we were talking for the first time. We could warm up. We could get to know each other before we met, if we did meet. And I figured, I know enough about her now and she knows enough about me. And maybe we have, a connection. Then I would meet the person and sometimes it would go, sometimes not. But most of the time it went really well. And that's what led to better dating. And I didn't have to force myself so much. And I didn't have such self-loathing. I have incredible low self-esteem. I grew up, if you saw early pictures of me, I had buck teeth that just looked horrible. And people would make fun of me. And I thought, oh my God, this is a miserable life. I was beat up in high school constantly, mostly not by just the teachers, but by students. And it was a horrible life. Not until I got to college did I finally start to come out of my shell. And I used to say to my brother, I'm just not going to get any women. He says, in your 40s, it'll start to happen. He was right.
Really?
Yeah. It was just amazing. And I didn't even know what I was doing. It just happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think back when you were describing yourself as a kid, I had glasses. They were always broken, held together with tape, packing tape. I had braces for 5 years, all that stuff. Kids in the neighborhood picked on me. My mom sewed all my clothes. Mom, those were great clothes, but they probably weren't the hippest clothes to be wearing, to junior high and that kind of stuff. And all of that. I got picked on a lot. It didn't change really until high school.
And then
I made an active choice.
Yeah.
But there had to be a switch that went on. It's kind of, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like one day we were just like, okay, this isn't going to happen to me. This can't be happening to me anymore.
Right. So because I know so little about women, what goes through a woman's mind if a guy likes you and he wants to approach you, or a guy likes you? What happens? What do you think? What do you do? Do you go, oh, I like that guy, I'm going to let him know that I like him? How does it work?
When a guy likes us or when we like a guy?
When you like a guy. We'll start with that.
Okay. Well, usually we're like, okay, could I see myself? How do I see myself with that person? First of all, it's like, okay, what quality is it attracting me? Usually it's like a sense of humor,
right,
or the way they are engaged in a conversation.
Okay.
Right. So something like that. And then it's kind of like, could I see myself with, you kind of get the vision, do I see myself, how does, do I see myself hanging out with this person, in compatibility thing, I guess.
Right.
I kind of want to laugh and be like, well, I picture us at our wedding. And because a lot of women do that, right?
Yes,
we go
they
from,
think, right.
We do.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, and then we do think of those things. And, until I met the boyfriend, I probably thought of those things more often. It was like, how do you fit into my life?
Right.
Long term, instead of just being like, oh, that's nice, maybe we'll go out for coffee and this could be an interesting adventure. I didn't think of it that way all the time, but that's probably a much healthier way to go about it.
Right.
Whereas when the boyfriend and I met, we didn't rush into anything.
No. It just happened. Right?
It just
happened. Took your time.
We met at Starbucks.
We met at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
I went to one of her shows. We went out for dinner.
And it just
slowly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I made an active effort, and I even told him up front, I'm not in any hurry. And you were like, all right. And that's how we rolled. That's just how it went.
Right.
But before, I wasn't always like that. You know,
Yes.
I kind of let someone else take charge of the situation, and then I
would just go along
with it, because, you know, it's kind of like one of my friends and I used to laugh about it. Is like, okay, so this puppy comes over and it's so cute and it's like wagging its tail. And it's like, pet me. And we're like, oh, you know, we're that puppy where it's like, oh, you're giving me attention. You're rubbing my belly. You're, you know, scratching my ears, and oh, you're home. Woo. Like, I don't want to be that dog anymore.
Right.
That's just stupidly loyal.
Yeah.
To someone who maybe is not right for me.
Do women know that there's guys out there that just want intimacy, that just want sex?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you guys know this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And most of us think that, oh, but he's going to like me more.
Right.
Right.
But it's not always that way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what I always think. Like, I definitely always want sex, but you have to make sure that it's not just about that. But if there's a connection, it could lead to that. But because I don't know anything about women, that's why I'm asking. All of you guys know what we're after, right? And
right.
It's just,
yeah.
No,
yeah.
It's true.
And if you don't know, well, email me.
Yes.
but yeah, like because that's like a animal instinct, right?
Yeah.
That's how we're wired.
Yeah.
And it probably, for men, boyfriends step in, but does it typically start out that way at first and then evolves into something else? Or does it go in the reverse?
From a man's perspective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends on our age.
Right. Because when
younger
you're younger,
we are, it's just like everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then as we get older, we're like, well, there's probably more to a relationship than that. And it's a maturity thing.
But women,
it may not be age, it's a maturity thing.
Yeah. I agree. But women want sex too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. I think the drive there is, and a lot of women may disagree. I mean, I listen to a lot of other podcasts and women talking about this, and I think it's funny because I hear a lot of younger people saying, they're like, and I get it, like, if a woman is out for sex, she's a slut, and then
I know,
right? So there's that whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, and I agree with that. I don't think that woman should be judged for that because they're acting, and taking their interest to heart. But at the same time, I also recognize that a lot of the women that I know personally, when they try to take that tone, at the same time, as much as we want to always be that black and white with it, it's not that way.
Correct.
Because that's just not necessarily the way we're wired.
Right.
We still tend to think of things in a deeper level, I think, than
on an emotional level.
Than a man does.
Well, thank God for that.
Right.
Because if it were just men, it would just be all sex. So thank God for that.
And I don't think that's a weakness. And there might be people who disagree with me, and that's totally fine. But I don't think being vulnerable and wanting something more is necessarily a weakness in somebody.
I agree.
And I also think that after a breakup, this has come up too, and I've listened to a lot of different people's ideas on this. But after a breakup, we've talked about this boyfriend, a man will typically go out and date someone right away, right? Because it's kind of like a validation of your ego, and you still got it. And a woman can do the same thing. Fine. There are times and places for all of that.
Right.
For me, I found that I did myself an injustice when I did that.
Yes.
And just went out and dated again. I mean, I went from one husband right into the next husband. I didn't even date anybody else in between. And so to me, that's a glaring picture of it's okay to take, and it's actually probably healthy to take time out and grieve that relationship loss.
Yes.
And kind of take some time for introspection and reflection. It doesn't mean that every single time you go out on 2 dates and it doesn't work out.
Right.
That's take a year off. I mean, that's not it either. It has to be an appropriate length of time. But I think that it's okay. Like if you're in a relationship for 5 or something years, which I have never been in, by the way. But for 2 to 4, I think is, counting married and dating my husband's, I probably would have been better served taking time out and really getting in tune with what it was I was looking for and what mistakes I had made and what role I had played in that relationship, instead of just saying I made a bad choice, because saying that person was the problem, and the problem, they were part of the problem, but I was the other part.
Yes.
And to take time out and I spent a lot of time dating after my second marriage. It's been years and like over a decade. And I have learned so much, and I'm so glad that I didn't go into yet a third big, huge relationship.
Until you felt that you were ready.
Until I was ready. Because there were times where I really thought I was ready. I still hadn't learned my lessons, and I still hadn't made those changes.
When I was in high school, which was probably the worst time of my life, junior high school and high school, I was terrified of women.
Me too. They were mean.
So did you get beat up a lot by other women?
I got pushed around and stuff. Yeah.
God,
I got picked on a lot.
Do women do physical violence like that?
Yeah.
Really?
There was a girl, she passed away shortly after high school, but she lived down the street from me, and she was angry. I think she had some hard times at home, but she was angry at me. She picked on me, called me names all the time. She actually pushed me out into traffic.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You didn't get hit, did you?
No.
Oh
but
my
it scared the crap
God.
out of me, because she was intimidating. She was threatening. She was bigger than me. I was real little.
I've been beaten up by guys, but I didn't think other women, girls
they
would
do.
beat.
Yeah.
So when I see those girls fighting videos on, that's not a lie. Those things happen.
Those things happen.
God, I didn't know girls. You see all these, not just boys committing suicide, but girls committing suicide.
Yeah.
And I went through that. I was beaten up so much. I used to say, I just don't want to live. I used to picture getting a gun and killing them. That's how violent, how angry I was.
Yeah.
I didn't know it got that bad that people commit suicide. Like there's been young girls who were bullied by other girls at 12. They committed suicide.
Yeah.
That is so sad.
Because people can be cruel. Hurt people hurt people. So Joanna Lynn said that on our last episode. Hurt people end up hurting other people.
Yeah.
And so, at that age, I think we tend to take things so personally. Instead of,
very much so.
Now that I'm older, I can look at it and go, wow, she had a lot of problems.
Yes.
It wasn't about me.
Right.
But it takes 40,
I know.
million years to get there. So
I know.
At that age, we don't see it that way. My mom would always say, Leanne, you don't see what I see. Trust me. She's not going to be anybody.
Yeah, I know.
She's doing this. And at the time I was like, no, you don't understand.
Exactly. They don't, right. But did you say she passed? She passed away?
She did. She actually committed suicide.
Oh my God.
They think there may have been foul play because she was left-handed and the gun was in the right hand. So it's very possible there was foul play there. But I remember when my mom told me about that, and she was like, I think you should sit down. I have some news for you. And she told me, and I was sad that it happened, but at the same time, I'm like, all right. And she's like, you're not upset? I'm like, she was mean.
Yes, exactly.
I was like, she was mean to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised.
But now in retrospect, you see the difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now
but
I
at the
see it
time it's
differently.
happening, it's a horrible thing. And, nobody seems like nobody can do anything about it.
Right.
But you're right. Now you look, years later, you look back. Yeah, she had a lot of problems. Obviously so.
But it's hard to go through it when you're on the end of taking it and taking it, and you don't feel self-worth. It takes away from your self-worth at that point, and it's difficult. So how did you get through it?
It was tough. I got the heck beaten out of me constantly, and I hated it. And at one point, I actually went to one of the coaches for football because he also taught one of the PE classes. And I said, hey, could you do something about these guys? They're just not leaving me alone. And he actually did.
Oh, wow.
And I remember many years later, after I graduated from high school, I saw one of them. And he came up to me and I said, what the hell you want? He says, I want to apologize for the way I treated you. And I went, why couldn't you be like that then?
Yeah.
And it's like they don't realize it until years later. And then they look back. But his apology didn't make it any better.
Right.
I just thought it was very cruel.
The damage had already been done.
Had been done.
And think about that. Like, how much does that play a role in your dating?
Oh, and it's not like they were after me because of my teeth and because of the way I looked. And that just made it worse.
Yeah.
And, that's why dating for so long for me was just, I'll wait for someone else to reach out to me. I'm too afraid. And there was a couple of times where I asked ladies out and they said no. And I bombed, and I went home and I wrote new jokes.
Yeah, about them.
About them. And I got back at them on paper. I did date a comedian. I won't mention her name. I did date The only time I dated a comedian was a year. The first 6 months was absolutely incredible. Then we had a falling out, and I wouldn't give up, and the last 6 months was horrible.
Oh.
And it was, you said something earlier, so true. There's nobody 100% to blame.
Right.
We're all, and I'm at least 50% to blame in all my relationships that didn't work. And on that one, probably more so, past 50%. I know the things I did. But, you can't be perfect in life. You have to, sometimes you just reach out and see what happens. And if it doesn't go, it doesn't go.
Right.
But just like being on stage, you learn from it. You learn from it. You change the way you go about it and you get better.
And she had, absolutely agree. And she had a lot of problems. And I knew this going in. And in my mind, I said, okay, I'm not gonna fall in love. I'm not gonna fall in love. And I did. And then I ruined it. So, but I wasn't the only one that ruined it. She played a part in it too. But
yeah.
No, I'll never date another. And now I'm with someone, even though she is funny, she's not a stand-up comic. So I've gotten out of that bubble.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably a good thing. I'm kind of curious because I've heard your writing and your jokes and everything.
Yes.
And was there a time where you wrote about your relationships or ever brought that into your comedy?
One of my friends, because I just write for what hits me.
Yeah.
I don't specifically write, but I write for the things, like I write a lot of sex jokes because...
of course, that's Barry.
Some guy, a friend of mine, not a comic, did an analysis of all my jokes that I'd written. This is about 15 years ago. He said, 18% are about your family. Another 12% are about this, non-dating. And 70% is about sex and relationships. And I went, wow, I think there's an issue there. So while I don't sit down to specifically write, yes, it's constantly on my mind. Yeah. And now I always write about the imaginary ex-girlfriend. It's not about any one. It's about a conglomeration of all of them. And then I can write something about it, but it's not about any one person. Yeah.
I always find that interesting because I always write. See, because I totally appreciate your jokes because you look at the world and like make observations and then plug it in, right?
Yeah.
And you're the king of one-liners, as you are called. And
I hope.
And I totally respect and appreciate that because that is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I want to do some of those. But then whenever I sit down and I write for me.
Yes.
Like even in our writing group, things will come up. I'm like, I can't do that because it's not true to me.
Right.
I can't write it unless it really is about me.
Yeah.
Is that weird?
No, that's the way. I absolutely agree with you because that's the way stand-up is. I've gone through so many comedy teachers that tried to get me to stop writing one-liners and do observational.
Yeah.
And I just thought the same thing. I go, but that's not who I am.
Right.
And when I did try it, it came out as fake.
Yeah.
And he says, well, you just have to keep at it. I go, but I don't feel it.
Right.
So you're exactly correct. You can't force someone else to do. And that's why with my students, I work within their style. I don't tell them what to be. And your writing is just so superb, so incredible. I wouldn't want you to change it.
She's like a short narrative joke to me, where yours a one-liner.
Yeah.
Yours a one-liner. But she's still writing jokes. But like you said, it's in the form of a narrative.
Yeah.
And thank God you write jokes because how many comics have we seen that take 20 minutes to get to a point? And I go, couldn't you just narrow
that down? Get to the point.
Exactly.
Like you don't need the setup. If you need to explain your joke, then it's not a joke. Like your joke should be easy and clear.
Right. And that's why I'm so glad I met you because I've learned a lot from you. Your joke writing, the way you word it is just superb. And I want to be able to say this for this podcast. I want you to get to the Laugh Factory. I want you to make it. I want you to, because you are phenomenal. You are just a brilliant comic. And I want people to see you and make it.
Thank you.
I do. You are unbelievably great. And I don't even have to see your set to know that. From the way you do your material on Monday nights, oh my God. If the right person gets to see you, you'll be off and running.
Thank you.
So
that's a nice compliment.
So that's why I wanted to get that in. So please don't edit that out.
I'm not going to edit that out.
I want that to be in there because I'm
going to play that over and over in my
just turned red
headphones
too,
at night.
Because I know you're embarrassed, but that's how good you are.
Oh, thank you.
But you're an amazing writer, and all those years that you put time in New York, all the shows you did, everything, it shows.
Thank you.
Your writing is a product of all those years, and it's just great. You could write for anyone. Your boyfriend is correct. You could not only be a great performer, but a terrific writer for anyone.
Thank you.
So something to think about.
All right. I'm going to give it some thought.
Yes.
I'm going to give it some thought. You had actually said one other thing that I want to circle back to,
okay.
as they say in business world.
Yeah.
Circle back to, which was, okay. So I want to circle back to the thing where you said about the Me Too movement and dating.
Yes.
And when we're talking to other women.
Yeah.
And we ended up talking about it in a lot of comedy terms. But somebody had mentioned this to me the other day, like who's normally used to kidding around with women, and they're usually okay with it. And now suddenly something shifted.
Yes.
And I'm like, I wouldn't necessarily chalk it all up to you.
Right.
I think that as a society, we're all becoming super aware of these things.
Yes.
And so when we do date and when we do talk to each other,
right.
our conversations are evolving as a result of that.
Yeah.
I think it's a direct reflection of what's going on.
Absolutely agree.
You know?
And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. You know what I'm saying? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
But they are evolving. I absolutely agree. It's a great statement.
So in the dating world, and I think even in marriages, I'm guessing like these topics are going to come up.
Yes.
Not only are we seeing that on TV as a conversation, but then to turn and look at one another and how do we talk to each other and what does that really mean to me?
Yes.
Because maybe we accepted things for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, I used to work in home building and construction. And so I worked out in the trailer every day with the guys and my team. And so
you heard it all.
I heard it all, but I also contributed to all of that.
Yeah.
Like I cringe at what I think of the things we talked about and stuff, you know, but I wanted to fit in.
Exactly.
You know, and they were my friends and we all trusted each other and everything.
Right.
And it was, you know, I'm grateful for that experience, but I look back, that situation today would never fly.
Never.
Well,
because we would all look at it differently.
Yes.
It's a cultural shift. We've made a shift. But if you look at our history of our country, things that happen in the 1800s don't go in the 1920s.
Correct.
Things in the 1920s didn't happen.
Right.
And we're at a different
always,
point. We've evolved, and now women now have a that's probably not the good way to put it, but women now are more prominent in our society, and the way we interact with women have changed.
Yes.
It's not Mad Men of the 60s anymore.
Correct.
It's a very different atmosphere, which is good.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we have to adapt the way we talk to each other and the way we interact with each other to make sure this all fits. And like you said, it may not be where we end up.
Right.
But we have to go through this to find out where we're going to end up.
Yeah.
And in another 5 years, we'll look back and we won't be the same that we are today. It'll shift again.
Yeah.
Similar to what you were saying, I worked with a woman at a hospital and she was just absolutely gorgeous. And I never hooked up with her. She wanted someone else other than me. But we used to constantly trade sex jokes, constantly, to the point where she would sometimes do more. And we were just comfortable with each other because that's the way it was. And I was starting to do stand-up and she knew it. And we had other friends and they were included in our conversation. And everything was just comfortable. You're right. That could never happen.
No.
Again.
Someone overhears that. And
yeah. Now, it could happen outside of work.
Right.
But no, at work, no more.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe the wheel will turn. Maybe the pendulum will swing back the other way. People are going to go, okay, we're too serious now as a society. I think it's okay to back off a little bit and maybe be, you know what?
Yeah.
Who knows? That might change.
Well, and also I think it comes down to we're learning there's maybe a time and a place for things.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And that everybody has their different levels of what's okay and what's not.
Yes.
And it's having that conversation, which I don't think we ever had before.
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
Think conversations are healthy to have, and that's how we grow. So
yeah, and we're doing the same thing with race.
Yeah.
There's a lot of discomfort right now.
Yep.
Because we never really had that conversation before. We just let things slide. And now we're having it. And we're going through a tough period. It will finally resolve itself. It might take years, but it's going to resolve itself sooner or later. And we can all hopefully go back to being friends.
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing I'm finding from these conversations is I'm learning a lot.
Yes.
And I find out how ignorant I was on so many things going back to, you know, because if we're raised a certain way, that's all we know.
Yeah.
And then, so in dating, in marriages and relationships, in the real world and business, whatever it is, as we evolve and grow, I look back and I'm like, oh my God.
I know.
You know?
I know.
Like, wow.
Same here.
So growth never happens in a comfortable place.
Correct. yeah, you have to go through some tough times to get to the good times.
Yeah.
And we will.
Yeah.
But
so there's discomfort in
yes.
knowing that we're in this place. I feel like Bobby Brady hanging from the swing set. He's trying to stretch himself, trying to get taller. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah. In my junior high school, in my math class, was the girl Maureen McCormick.
Really?
Yeah, in junior high school. I went to Hughes Junior High School, and she was in the class. At the same time, she was on the Brady Bunch.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And she was a celebrity, and everybody kissed her butt.
Marsha.
Yeah. And I was afraid to talk to her.
Really?
Because, she was this.
Well, she's a celebrity.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know how to, but everybody kissed her butt. And I don't know.
Well, that's why she's not in comedy.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. And that's why I am.
That's right. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation.
I really appreciate you allowing me to do this.
Likewise. I'm so glad
that
you agreed to this. And kind of unknowingly, I'm like, hey, be on our podcast.
I was terrified before I came here. And now maybe we could schedule a time to do another, like part 2.
Yeah.
Because I have so much more that I want to say and so much more about comedy that we didn't get to. So who knows? But thank you very, very much. You asked great questions. And just one more time, you're a phenomenal comedian.
I'm giving him a check after this podcast is over.
Thank you again.
Thank you.